Where a lot of students went wrong with this question was to assume that the question is about safety. It's not at all about safety. X-rays are used by doctors to produce pictures of the inside of the human body. Explain how X-rays are used to produce pictures inside of the body, and why they're used instead of ultraviolet radiation. Well, let's be very clear here. X-rays are more dangerous than ultraviolet radiation. They are more ionising, and they will cause more damage to the human body. So it's definitely not a case of it being safer than ultraviolet radiation. So absolutely no marks for discussing safety. What you should instead be talking about is how an X-ray image works. So the first thing to note here is that X-rays need to pass through the body in order to form an image on the other side. Now, ultraviolet radiation is absorbed by the skin. This is why it's so dangerous in terms of skin cancer. So it can't pass through. Ultraviolet radiation will not pass through the body. It will be absorbed by the skin. You need to be saying that for a mark. Another mark you could get here is to say that X-rays will pass through soft tissues. So it will pass through skin and muscle and fat, and or penetrate would be the key word to use there, but that it won't pass through. It will be absorbed by dense tissues such as bone, and the result of that is it will lead a shadow image on the other side of the patient on a photographic film or on a sensor. So you end up with an image formed. The final part of this X-rays question includes a pretty dodgy scientific study done by Joel. He went to a cancer ward and he asked all the patients if they'd ever had an X-ray picture. Of those, 22 had an X-ray and only one had not had an X-ray. So he decided to draw the conclusion that this shows that X-rays are dangerous and might cause cancer. Well, the first thing to say, you need to be pointing out some of the flaws in this scientific study. First of all, there was no control group here. Every person he asked had cancer. What he didn't do is ask the population, the wider population of people who didn't have cancer, whether they'd had an X-ray, and you might have had a similar set of results. A lot of people have had an X-ray at some point in their life, which would show that perhaps there is no correlation between X-rays and cancer. The second thing to point out, though, is that there is a correlation here. Use the keyword here. He has found a correlation between people having X-rays and people who've not had an X-ray. Now, that correlation, as you well know, does not mean necessarily there is a causal link between the two, although in this particular case you could get a mark as well if you described how there is a scientific mechanism for X-rays to cause cancer, and that is because X-rays are ionising radiation, so they can damage the DNA in cells.